Yeah. So you want to kick it off?
Yes. Well, first of all, it's great to be back in East Chicago, and thank each and every one of you for being here. I had the honor of introducing the 17th Secretary of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, Dr. Ben Carson. Dr. Carson is a graduate of Yale University. He received his MD from University of Michigan Medical School. At the age of 33, he became the youngest ever director of pediatric neurosurgery. It's mouthful, pediatric neurosurgery at the Johns Hopkins Children's Center. He held that role for almost 30 years. He and his wife have co-founded the Carson Scholars Fund, which recognizes exceptional young men and women from all backgrounds for their high academic and humanitarian achievements. And so to date, that scholarship fund has recognized 7,300 young people and awarded $7.3 million. So several of them are here in Indiana, which we are so proud of. And so please, let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Ben Carson.
Absolutely delighted to be here. Good to see you, Secretary the Governor, and all the officials. And we are obviously at HUD very, very interested in situations like this, primarily because we want to make sure they don't occur again. And I say that nothing is a total waste as long as you learn from it. You learn from it, take something away from it, and make sure that you not only take care of the problem itself, but learn from it to make sure that other people don't suffer the same consequences. Then you've done what you should be doing. And I think that's one of the real roles of government. And one of the things that we've been particularly interested in is the development of people. As I was saying to the governor on the way up here, everybody is either going to become part of the load or part of the engine. Obviously, if we can move more people toward the engine and less people toward the load, we're going to go a lot further and a lot faster. And that should be another goal, I think, of government process. Safety, obviously, is a huge issue. At the time that this area was developed and the time that this neighborhood was put here, I don't think we even had an EPA at that time. And certainly we're not cognizant of some of the long-term effects. And I think it is a very useful thing for people to recognize that those who created these communities, they certainly were not bad people. They just didn't recognize the implications of what's going on. And that's a philosophy that I tend to use with everything. I look at the people who preceded me at HUD, and I don't say that they're bad people. If they came up with some things that don't work, we use those as stepping stones. We learn from those things and we progress forward. And that's an area that I think is so essential if our nation is to be successful in the future, is really kind of stop so much finger pointing and spend a lot of that time and effort actually figuring out what the problem is, because it affects us all. And we only have 330 million people in this country. It sounds like a lot, but it's a quarter of what India has. It's a quarter of what China has. And that means we need to develop all of it. We can't afford to have groups of people who are not being developed. We can't have groups of people who are being carted off to the penal system and to the welfare system. And we need to be thinking early on about what are the things that we can do to create success for all of our people. So That's a theme you'll hear a lot from me. We're really in the process of reorganizing so that we really start developing people. Putting them in housing is part of developing people, but we really have to look at this much more holistically. And, safety is obviously an incredible part of that. I'm very anxious to hear, what has been learned and what the plans are here at the city.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. My name is Jim Cunningham. I'm the Deputy Regional Administrator for HUD out of the Chicago Regional Office, so thank you all for being in attendance and thanks for coming out to Region 5. I wanted to give you an update on what HUD's efforts have been to date so that you know where we are, and then we can have a discussion with all the officials. Mayor Copeland here, we've been working together since July of last year on this situation when the EPA first gave us the notification of the actual levels of contamination on the West Calumet site. So West Calumet, which is the Chicago Housing Authority run by the Executive Director Tia Cawley, operated 346 units of public housing on the West Calumet site. As you mentioned, it was originally built in the late 1960s, early 70s on a former Superfund or a former lead smelting site. So in July of last year, after EPA had been working here for several years, they were doing their development plan and identified extremely high levels of lead and arsenic on the site. And at that time, the mayor and the housing authority determined that it was not safe for families to continue to live there. So the housing authority contacted HUD with what we call a Section 18 demolition disposition application, which we were able to respond to and provide what we call tenant protection vouchers. We were able to do that in less than 3 weeks, which is unprecedented due to the health and safety concerns here in East Chicago.
And that's something that we have to study to make sure we can do that on a regular basis.
I would agree. we almost did it again the second time, but we'll talk about that. So we authorized the issuance of tenant protection vouchers in the amount of $1.9 million so that the residents could use those vouchers. They're permanent vouchers that allow them to live in permanent housing that is decent, safe, and sanitary in other parts, anywhere actually, where they want to live that has a voucher program in the United States. We identified a funding source to help them with relocation. It was the East Chicago emergency or capital funds. They identified a relocation cost of nearly $1 million was their budgeted amount. We worked with the state of Indiana, who's been a great partner in this, the Indiana Community Development Housing and Community Development Authority, sorry Jay, provided at that time $100,000 to assist with relocation. We also identified support staff. So Lindsay Reams is a HUD senior official out of public housing that's been on site since July of last year. Courtney Miner, our legal counsel, John Haller, Indiana our field office director, and Patricia Tyus have all been helping East Chicago since we first identified that to get them through that. So status of, when they made the application, there were 333 families on site. As of June of this year, all families have been relocated off the site into permanent housing of their choice. We know that ECHA, the Housing Authority, has secured the site now with fencing as we await the next steps. HUD provided just over $568,000 in technical assistance through relocation counselors and mobility counselors to help the residents find suitable housing. Of the $1 million that identified from capital fund, over $664,000 has been expended. Adding the state's $100,000, they spent about nearly $750,000 to help relocate these residents. So what we're now, the next steps, we are working on the demolition application, which requires an environmental review. HUD is in the process of doing that. We had just in the end of June, we had a public comment hearing where we heard from advocates and residents about some of the concerns about the demolition. We are weighing those concerns now. We'll make a final determination on that demolition application, or the environmental review, which will allow HUD staff to make a final determination on the demolition application. And at that time, The state has also identified $2 million, mostly in former NSP, Neighborhood Stabilization HUD funding, and some additional state resources to assist the Housing Authority with demolition. They have also come to us for a request for emergency capital funds to assist in the demolition, but we need to finish the demolition application. So that's where our efforts today. We've been working lockstep again with the mayor, with the state of Indiana, to help these residents find new permanent housing. With that, I will turn it over to
Albert, you want to give an update from the EPA perspective?
Well, from the standpoint of the EPA perspective, by the way, I'm Albert Kelly. I'm a senior advisor to Scott Pruitt in the EPA, and glad to be out here. It's an honor to be with all of you. This is my third trip to East Chicago on behalf of Administrator Pruitt. He was here himself in April. This is a high priority on his list. We have the property, as far as EPA is concerned, is divided into 3 zones. Zone 1 you're in, along with the housing addition that is now empty. Zone 2 is a partial area. Next to this is residential, and Zone 3 is also residential. We are in the process of remediating yards primarily, and then testing inside of houses. We had a remediation plan for Zone 1, which would include the school and the housing area, but once the determination to demolish that was made, we obviously had to stand down on that. So we've been remediating yards, and we've been working with the state to replace the lead pipe that goes from the water main to the house. So those have been being replaced as the state is available to coordinate with us. And it's been a good partnership. I think I believe that's the status as far as EPA is concerned. We expect to have all the yards remediated by by the end of next season. So we will have that completed. As Mr. Cunningham noted, there will be some challenge with the 2 agencies as far as the removal of the remediated material when this is torn down, and then the remediation of Zone 1, which we've committed to take that, which will then be an empty piece of ground, back to residential standards, so that the city can do what they decide, whatever it is that they decide.
Does this school also get demolished?
It's my understanding the school's not going to be demolished, but I am not that decision maker. I don't know.
built is the superintendent
School's
school.
not being demolished, it's up for sale at a low price. It's up for sale release.
So it is not contaminated.
School is school. People are afraid to come here. We had a couple people come to look at it, these things are concerned about this.
Mayor, I don't know if you had any comments or questions for the Secretary?
Mr. Secretary, let me welcome you to the great city of Chicago. As you can see, we're a very resilient city. You throw many things at us and we like that. We wobble, but we don't fall down. And I've heard your words. I too was built that way to try to find a solution. Fireman for 27 and a half years. I've learned to make a decision. And one of the hardest ones I had to make is when the data came at me, and just a little knowledge goes a long way, and I just didn't see how they was going to clean it up and walk around and tie vested suits and protective masks to shield themselves, but at the same time the children were running around, and it was a recipe for disaster in my eyes.
I can't even imagine what you must have thought when you saw it.
But the one thing in all of this is that I think that didn't help us mobilize faster or deal with the population more efficiently is an infusion of new dollars. When there is a crisis, you can't go in with a Peter Rob Paul theory and say, let me go to the existing operating budget that is for housing across the whole city, and then say, let's take part of this and, like piecemeal it, like patch the roof instead of just fix the whole roof at one time. And I think that when we crowd all the way to the federal government for the cavalry to come, I think it has to come full charge. And that's the only thing in this that I walk away with, being refreshed that in this room, now I know eventually that help will come, and when it comes fully charged and ready to take care of problems. And as we came together more and more and more, I started seeing the lessening of the residents' fear. I saw the ignorance and misinformation dissipate, and then you saw the holistic approach of the whole community just got better. So I want to share that with you, that I'm proud from the governor's office all the way to the federal government that people have came to assist us, because there was a moment that I was completely underwater, and now I got my head above. so you know, I think we're clear. But I would just like to thank everybody in this room for consistently showing the governor. We're gonna give him a permanent resident. But again, I can walk away each time you come with the feeling that we're not alone.
Well, I just want to thank you, because I know that you're a long-term resident of this area. You've never abandoned it, and you've been a true for these people. I think everybody appreciates it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from Representative Scott?
You mentioned the environmental assessment that has to be completed first. Do you have a time frame?
We don't. We are.
You answered my question. Secondly, my understanding is demolition will be about 5.1 million. Governor, I don't know if I'm clear. The state's expended about $700,000 to secure the site. Of that 5.1, 1.3 subset of that 5.1 would be available for demolition.
I didn't hear that question. Congressman, can you repeat that question?
The question is, if it's 5.1 for demolition and the state had $2 million, which I deeply appreciate, and then about 700 had been expended, is the 1.3 a subset of the 5.1? That is it available?
I can find out for you. I'll get you an answer to that.
And I think there's, as we're going through the demo, I think the $2 million is part of the total dollars, but we don't have a total dollar amount because we need, as we go through the environmental review, there things may be changing in the scope, the nature of the work may change. So, but the original 5.1 included the $2 million from the state.
Final quick, is it a competitive with the federal government?
Lindsay, it's not.
It's an emergency, so it is first come, first served based on several review criteria.
And East
But-
Chicago has already applied.
Yes, yes. Chicago's already in the pipe.
So it's competitive, but it's kind of
yeah,
first time in here in line. Thank you very much.
But let me also add for the record that we projected that it may come in between $6 to $8 million. As you can see, we haven't been able to secure the premises. We've been having vandalism, in which the director had already predicted that once the site is evacuated, that now we will have the threat of arson, vandalism, and that's incurring as we speak, because the missing component here is to do board up, to secure the area, minimum. We've been taxed with providing security, housing dug deep again in that operating budget to put the perimeter razor fencing up, but yet there's gaps there where people can get in because we have to provide 24-hour security of the premises. Again, I think that if we do not act swiftly, the price tag is just going to escalate. It's going to escalate. And the uncertainty of knowing where these dollars are coming from, that's something that I haven't heard anyone clearly speak of.
What kind of time frame are we looking at for decision on the emergency?
It's all going to be dependent on finishing the environmental review, then once the demolition application, Section 18 application is done, then the decision will be made.
When do you think the environmental review will be finished? If one's dependent on the other.
Right. Depends on, a couple of things are dependent upon what are, based on the comments. We will make a decision, I'm hopeful, by the end of this month. A decision will be made by the end of the month. And one last question. Representative Randolph.
Comment and question. My name's Lonnie Randolph. I'm state senator, and I've got some personal historical ties with this community, in particular with the school. This is a grade school I went to. This is the second time it's been built. And I'm from Calumet, that's the original Calumet thing. One of the issues that we had from the beginning concerning relocation was that some of the residents could not find locations like nearby Hammond, Gary, Maryville because of the limitation in terms of Section 8 for housing, subsidized housing. And some of them located residents in other states, and there was an issue with HUD concerning whether or not they're going to pay the cost to go beyond 50-mile quote-unquote credit at that point in time. I think that's been worked out. But one of the issues that pops in my mind and I was concerned with was treatment. You've got a lot of families that moved out, and of those families, some have been treated, had kids treated positive for lead. Is there a mechanism in place whereby there's going to be follow-up concerning those treatments, whether or not they live locally or whether or not they relocated beyond this 50-mile radius or another state? I'm assuming there's going to be communication between HUD and the EPA, but is the health department going to be involved with that as well? And I'm not certain there's been a treatment program implemented to treat the kids that who are tested positive for it. There have been local people within the area, like the grocery store. I think the NAACP got making vegetables available for the kids and everything. But beyond that, I'm not aware of anything else. And I'd like to know whether, and I'm not alone in terms of this as well. I think the community would like to be aware of things like that as well.
I know there are 15.
And I want to appreciate Todd and Joe, and Pete. I mean, they've been phenomenal, and the governor and my man over here. And so I'm very pleased with the effort at this point in time, because the key thing we're trying to do is get people interested to recognize what was happening here in East Chicago. I mean, this is just East Chicago, small town in the whole country. And so we're very pleased to have you here, and hopefully we'll have a collective team that's going to do some positive things for the community. Because you got to bring back that confidence. You lost a lot of confidence in the community. Otherwise, you wouldn't have got some people outside with some picket signs. So we got to deal with that. The only way to do that is make a commitment in terms of getting it done.
I'm with you 100%, and I agree. We do know about those 15 families that have children that have been lead tested positively, and they are being followed appropriately. And we're going to do that for the long term, as well as look out for the others. But I do recognize that there's a lot of tension, a lot of distrust that has been well earned, quite frankly. And you can't just come in and say, we're going to take care of all this for you, and expect people to say, okay, everything's fine. The proof is in the pudding, and it will be there.
Thank you all for being here. We have to move on to the next meeting, but thank you for all your efforts, and thank you, Secretary Carson.
But let me have one other thing, I'm the governor, while you're here, I want to personally thank you for having IDEM look across our water supply and restore the confidence in the water supply, because we was here with a 1-2 project in question the water supply. We just invested in a $52 million water filtration plant, state-of-the-art membrane system, and it was in question, so that added a heightened awareness of fear across the community. But I want to tell you thank you for that, because I said from the beginning, all testing showed that there was nothing wrong with our water supply, and this last round of testing that you did with Bruno showed consistently that the truth is the truth. Yes. So thank you for helping us restore the time.
Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be here at East Chicago, and I have the honor of introducing the governor of the great state of Indiana, Eric Holcomb. Eric Holcomb, prior to being governor, served as a close and trusted advisor for Governor Mitch Daniels, Vice President Michael Pence, and Director of Intelligence Dan Rhodes. He is a veteran of the U.S. Navy, a proud graduate of Pike Township High School in Indianapolis and Hanover College in Jefferson County. He is just an author of Leading the Revolution, which details his leadership and management experiences. For those of you that don't know it, Eric loves basketball, and he has shot and made a basket in all 92 counties. In addition, he is a lover of history and collects presidential signatures, has 42 of our 45 presidential signatures. What three are you missing?
Washington, Jefferson.
Washington, Jefferson, First Adams. Anybody have any connections? Please let the governor know. Anyway, please welcome my partner, my friend, our governor, Eric Holcomb.
Well, thank you. Welcome. It's always good to be on the ground here, listening from residents, most importantly, getting their perspective, their updates, and working with the local leaders here in East Chicago. Just a few months ago, as you all maybe recall, you were here. We also welcomed another cabinet official here to East Chicago, and we at that time highlighted all the work that had been occurring, how we were all coming together, forming these partnerships from the local to the state to our federal partners. And I just want to take a second to highlight a few of those folks who are back. But someone who has always been here and always will be is Mayor Copeland. I want to just express my profuse thanks for your willingness to reach your hand out, actually before I was sworn in, from before day one, and you reached your hand out, and I haven't let go since. And we're going to be here throughout the whole duration. Also, our state legislative delegation up in the region has been wonderful. Our congressional delegation, as you see here once again, Senator Donnelly, Senator Young, and Congressman Wisklowski, all have just done yeoman's work to date. Obviously, my partner, Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch, who oversees various agencies that have a lot to do with making sure that we stay on the right path as we move forward. And today, I stand here again welcoming another cabinet official, our nation's HUD Secretary, Dr. Ben Carson, and he has spent most of the morning into this afternoon hearing again from residents and their perspectives, hearing from state and local leaders, making sure that we're making absolute sure that all the pieces of this puzzle fit together to develop this new picture of our future together. And it really does speak volumes that Dr. Carson lived in your first year. This is one of your first stops around the nation, and we are so appreciative of that fact. We are all continuing to learn and to listen, and obviously lead well into the weeks and months and years ahead as we make sure we stay on this right path moving forward. We have so many, a list too long to go over right now with so many distinguished guests behind me, but we have so many assets in the region. I have long said I'm bullish about the future here. When you think about our location, when you think about our access to our roads and our interstates, to our rail network, to our ports, both air and water, but the absolute most important asset that we have is our people and our neighborhoods and our communities here. And so that's what we've been focused on, making sure that, again, we stay on this right path. And that's what our administration, every agency that the state oversees, that I oversee, including all the officials that are here with us today, Dr. Jerome Adams, Dr. Wathel, Bruno Piggott at the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, all are here again with our federal partners, working hand in glove to make sure that we continue to get this right, and we are. And so you'll hear from many of them, but it's my distinct honor now to introduce to you our nation's HUD Secretary, Dr. Ben Carson.
Thank you very much, Governor Holcomb, and all the other officials who are here. I wanted to come here specifically to see for myself what was going on. I've seen the pictures and heard multiple stories and read various accounts. But this was an opportunity to hear from the residents themselves who've been impacted, and also to hear from the various officials from their perspectives. Sometimes there are things that we don't even really think about. For instance, the school superintendent who loses 400 students, along with the money that brings and how to cope with that kind of situation. So there are many ramifications in a situation like this. The other thing that's so important is to learn from the situation. to make sure that we can avoid these kinds of problems across the country in the future. And, no bad experience is wasted as long as you learn from it, take something from it. That's the reason cleaning formula 409 is called that, because the first 408 didn't work. But they didn't give up, they learned from it, and they kept moving forward. And that's what we have to do as a society. I think the other thing that's important is not to spend all of our time laying blame on whoever was there before we were. Clearly, in 1970, when this complex was built, people were not nearly as aware of some of the environmental issues as we are today. And I'm sure 20 years from now, there'll be other environmental issues that will come to attention that we're not particularly cognizant of today. And it's a learning process, but we need to make it a positive process. And the other thing that is so key, and particularly to me, having spent my entire career in the medical profession, is the health of our citizens, and particularly our vulnerable young citizens. And the situation that has occurred here in Calumet is sort of a poster child of what can happen. But also, I've been thrilled to see the response at every level. The governor, the mayor, the various officials, people have really manifested some significant concern here. And it's clear in listening to some of the residents that they've had difficulty moving from a place that they were used to having, and there's been some inconveniences. But we do have to clearly recognize the importance of getting our citizens out of harm's way. And, that's been done here. It's been done in a good way. Are there better ways to do it? Probably. And are we learning what they are? Absolutely. And will we use those to try to prevent these kinds of problems in the future? We absolutely will. And now let me just turn it over to Senator Donnelly, who you all know very well, who I've gotten a chance to know, who is a very wise and fair person.
I want to thank the Secretary, the Governor, the Lieutenant Governor, my partners, Senator Todd Young, Congressman Viscoski, Mayor Copeland, all my partners. The commitment we make is that we'll be with the residents every step of the way. And that's what this has been about. This is my fourth or fifth visit here. Each visit we learn more. Each visit we make more progress. We want all of our families of East Chicago to get the chance to come home, to get the chance to come back to the town that they love, the town that they've grown up in, the town that their children have grown up in. And that's what this is about. As the Secretary said, we've been able to move all the families. It wasn't perfect, but it is that we'd love to see them all come back someday. And we're going to work every day to get better at this, to have a chance for all of them to come back and have their hopes and dreams come true here in East Chicago. We have an emergency grant request in, and we are working very hard to see that to a conclusion, to see that to enable the mayor to have more tools here to use for the people of our community. I sent a letter to the HHS, the Health and Human Services Department, and we are seeking that they continue long-term monitoring of the health conditions of our families, the educational benefits that our children can have, so that with the disruptions that we've seen, we don't want our kids to fall behind. And so this is a seamless effort to all work together to make sure that the families that lived in West Calumet, that they have a chance to have their lives made whole again. That throughout Zones 2 and Zones 3 as well, that we can alleviate all of the concerns there. And that East Chicago's best days are ahead of us here. And it's a long-term commitment. We'll be in it every single day. And I have a strong partner in this effort in the United States Senate, Senator Todd Young.
Thank you. Joe. I too want to thank Secretary Carson, our governor, our lieutenant governor, of course Senator Donnelly, with whom I enjoy working in the U.S. Senate. I want to thank Congressman Visclosky and the mayor. This has been a team effort, and let me be crystal clear. The residents of East Chicago, like the residents throughout the state of Indiana and beyond, deserve a government that learns from its experiences and that treats everyone like they're an asset to be realized and not a liability to be written off. And so that's really what this is about. It's making sure that we have sufficient resources to continue to respond to this crisis and future crises at the federal, state, and local levels. We've done a good job of working together in consultation with the local citizens who've been very active in this effort, and we're so grateful for their feedback. We also want to make sure we're prepared for the next similar sort of crisis and that we improve upon the response. This has been a point of emphasis, I know, for Secretary Carson, based on his comments here today. And to the extent we can help Indiana and this community specifically become a national model for better responses moving forward, we want to do that. So I know, like everyone standing before you today, we pledge to continue to work together to serve not just this community, but communities like this and Americans that are impacted like this moving forward. And with that, one of my partners in that effort, as in this effort, has been Congressman Visclosky, who you will hear from now.
Thank you very much. I too want to thank the Secretary for taking the time out of his life to be with us today, and all of my colleagues. I would point out that since the last time we had a press conference with many of those who are in attendance today, with the Administrator for the Environmental Protection Agency, we have collectively made progress. There is more to be done, but every day grudging progress is being made. Senator Young talked about resources, and I would absolutely agree with the observation, and would also point out I feel a special responsibility as the only member of the Appropriations Committee in either body representing Indiana, that I have a special responsibility to make sure financial resources are available nationally. This is an important issue for people's health. This is an important issue for people's safety. This is also an important issue for everyone, not just in East Chicago, but our industrial corridor in Northwest Indiana and the mayor of East Chicago, to make sure we have that quality of place and remediate 100 years of our industrial legacy so that we can grow jobs in East Chicago and regrow the population in East Chicago. And someone at the forefront of that effort is Mayor Copeland. It is my delight to introduce to you the Mayor of East Chicago, Anthony Copeland.
Let me simply say that I'm not going to stand up here and try to repeat everything that's been said. I think it's been said honorably, and I think it's been said with good faith. But I would simply and humbly tell each of them behind me, lady and gentlemen, thank you for letting you say what you mean and mean what you say. The governor said that when he was lieutenant governor, I reached my hand out to him and I haven't let go since. I attested that's very true. And Senator Donnelly said that they're looking and reaching out to give us the tools that we need to finally bring this problem to a rest. But I think when everybody see the teamwork that has put together, the nation will use this as a blueprint on how to deal with lead crises or any other crises across the nation. And I humbly say for the residents of East Chicago, thank you that they can see from local government to state government, all the way to federal government, seeing government work together and empower them as citizens. Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a couple of questions, one at a time, please.
Sure. Several of you mentioned the progress that has been made and the progress that is yet to be done. We would like to address kind of where we are and what needs to happen now. Obviously, the residents are out. Congressman, you spoke about the progress. I think that this is a question for you, but what needs to happen now, or perhaps Mayor Copeland helping those residents who are trying to transition to new housing and new environments?
Well, I think what we all agree that to make all of this believable, we have to take the injustice and right it. And that right comes in when we restore that property to residential standards. That's what the people have asked for. When we restore it to residential standards, then we will be able to develop it to any level. Let it be commercial, let it be new housing, anything. So this is what we're waiting for the EPA to give us the clean bill of health at that level.
And then just for the other part of that question, so in the meantime, those residents are now transitioning to other communities, other housing. What's being done to help them now? There were some in the meeting, correct?
Yes.
How many residents were in the meeting?
I would roughly say about 12.
12. So, and what, do you know what's being done to help them in the meantime? Because this is going to be a long process.
Well, everyone has transitioned out. I mean, if you go to the facility now, you will see it's ghostly, quiet and still. Now, we're looking to track the health of their children through further analyzing the results of lead testing. We're looking to put to give them access to health care to where they can rest assured that they get it monitoring properly. And then last but not least, we're trying to show them that they will be able in the end return back home when we sit and put affordable housing back in place to restore the lost stock that we had.
Somebody people talked a little bit about, we met a woman outside, who was one of the residents up until June or so, who was moved to Section 8 housing in Joliet. She had a job in June, she had to quit that job because she just couldn't make the commute a long distance. Was there an issue with getting local public housing for a lot of these people? Why did so many people have to move so far away?
Because when you look at the city of Chicago, we're roughly a population of 29,600 with 13 square miles, and there's only so much housing there. And you look in the West Calumet area, there was 346 units of housing lost. So it was just hard to fill that void just within the confines of the walls of the city of East Chicago. So therefore, HUD stepped in, they gave them vouchers that allowed them to be able to go anywhere within a 50-mile radius and absorb the cost. So I think it was just the size of our available housing stock.
Secretary Carson, is there a chance that the residents who use those vouchers in places where they're not happy or didn't make what they wanted to, is there a chance HUD will help them move around?
Well, they've been issued tenant protection vouchers in an amount of $1.9 million. And if there are individual hardships that don't allow them to use those, we're always willing to look at those on a case-by-case basis.
Secretary Carson, you mentioned that in this situation, it would be best to not look back so much as to look forward. Is there a balancing act, though, to look at who might be responsible and who might assist in the cleanup?
Certainly in terms of the corporate world, the business world, whoever was responsible for creating the problem, absolutely there's some rationale in asking them to be involved in the cleanup.
And is that something that you would favor, or you think that should continue? You mentioned not to spend a lot of time on that.
I would favor them being involved in helping to clean up what they created, absolutely. And I think what I was really trying to get across is we shouldn't spend the bulk of our time going back and pointing fingers at officials and saying, you were in office during that time, how did you let this happen? It was simply something that was floating under the radar. People really didn't understand the implications of what was going on. And as long as we understand what the implications are now, when we devote appropriate attention to it, I think we can resolve this issue and, as I said, learn from it so that it doesn't happen.
And what would you say to the residents who are having a tough time with this transition? Although they might be in a healthier environment, they are dealing with issues of work, of getting support in these new communities, educational opportunities for their kids. What would you say to them?
I would say we have to lend a sympathetic ear, and we have to be open to using the resources and the connections that we have to try to alleviate their anxieties. But the other thing that I would always add to that is that we as a nation must begin to devote more attention to developing our people, to developing our young people, utilizing the potential that God has placed in them to ascend the ladders of success in this country. And for me, success at HUD is not how many people we can put into public housing, but how many we can get out of it.
All right, last
I wonder
question.
if we could talk a little bit more about the medical consequences for the children. You talk about the medical care they'll provide going forward. Can you give us an idea of what that involves?
Well, the children who have tested positively at 5 micrograms per deciliter or more are being monitored in terms of their physical and mental status. And even when their levels drop below that amount, they will continue to be monitored throughout their childhood. And if there's any indication of a problem at that time, they will continue to be monitored thereafter. We recognize in medicine that the long-term effects of high concentrations of lead can be very difficult to ferret out. And so we're keeping a very open mind in terms of what the ramifications are.
Several of you mentioned this is possibly a model or a blueprint.
Ma'am, you've asked a lot of questions.
It was said that these people who have been relocated should be allowed to come back first, that you all want those relocated residents to be able to come back to East Chicago if they want to. Can any of you offer any assurances that relocated residents will get a first right to any new public housing developed in East Chicago? So they would be given the first opportunity to move in before other people would be accepted. Do you understand the question? Did I make it clear?
Yes.
Can any of you make any assurances that that will happen for them?
Anyone? I think those assurances will come through what type of funding that the city of Chicago can secure. I think it comes from how quickly that we can restore the lost housing. I think it comes with all of us realizing the greater need in Northwest Indiana for additional housing, because they have been scattered to the four corners of Indiana, if not adjoining states. So I think how swiftly we get the federal funding to help us restore, and also with the assistance at the state level, I can say with certainty that they will have first rights.
To back up what Mayor Copeland said, we were just at a presentation by the state about 2 affordable housing developments here in Lake County, and I think it's very, very likely that at least one of them would be in East Chicago. And the commitment we make is to all of our citizens. Look, whether they're in Joliet right now or somewhere else, we consider them Hoosiers. We want them to come home. You don't build a city like East Chicago by people going away. You build it by them coming back, and they have roots here. They spend time here. They have commitment here. They have blood in the bricks here. And so we want them to come home. And, those policies are going to be determined as we move forward, but it would make perfect sense that the first shot would be the people who aren't here anymore, but want to come home and have the chance to be back in their hometown.
And I think I can add with that the one thing that we all heard in concert and at one accord from the people was the painful thing for them was to leave home, but we heard their yearning that they want to come back.
We can't hear you. Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, would you mind